The battle of the beverages. Starbucks reports that sales were down again the last quarter, and now some of the other major chains are looking to fill your cup.
Have you ever taken a sip of your regular coffee and felt like something was just missing? There was a time when a simple cup meant real beans, real flavor, and no second guessing what was inside. But what if the comfort we've come to count on has quietly turned into something else? Today at the Hidden Menu, we take a deep dive into what might really be brewing in your cup. So let us start with 1. Starbucks. Starbucks changed how America drinks coffee. From the sound of the espresso machine to the green aprons and custom cups, it became more than a place to get caffeine. It became part of the routine. For a while, it really felt like a small luxury you could afford. You paid more because it seemed like you were getting more. But lately, some regulars are starting to feel like the coffee just doesn't taste the way it used to. The bitterness hits different. The depth is gone. That warm, roasty fullness has been replaced with something flatter, sometimes almost burnt. Former employees and supply chain workers say the core issue is roast quality and bean sourcing. While Starbucks still uses Arabica beans, not all Arabica is created equal. Many blends now rely on dark roasting to hide inconsistencies in lower-grade beans, an old industry trick that works well enough for lattes and flavored drinks but falls short in black coffee. What you're tasting isn't always the coffee. It's the roast, the milk, the syrup, the caramel drizzle layered on top. The more you customize, the less you notice what's missing underneath. One former barista said, "You're drinking a recipe, not a brew." And that's exactly how Starbucks built its system. Mass customization that can mask a lot of what's changed in the cup. There's also the issue of freshness. Beans are roasted centrally, packaged, and shipped, sometimes sitting for weeks before they're brewed. In busy locations, that might not matter much. But in quieter ones, or in grocery store kiosks and smaller setups, the coffee you're drinking may have been ground hours ago, or brewed into a pot that's been warming far too long. That warmth turns bitter. That time changes everything. Then there's the fact that more Starbucks coffee is now brewed through automated machines, button-based brewing, programmed tamping, timer-set steeping. It's efficient, yes, but it's also impersonal. There's less room for judgment, less care in the pour, less attention to the finish. Coffee starts to become just another menu item. One customer said their regular brew now tastes like something between diner coffee and flavored water with a smoky aftertaste. Starbucks still carries the illusion of quality. The names sound exotic, the packaging is sleek, and the experience is designed to feel elevated. But the product? It's drifted. Not in a loud or obvious way, just quietly, slowly, one cup at a time, until what you're holding might not feel like a ritual anymore, but a habit. 2. Dunkin' Donuts. Dunkin' was never fancy, and that used to be the point. You went there because it was quick, cheap, and strong enough to get you through the morning. No foam hearts, no latte art. Just coffee in a paper cup with cream and sugar if you wanted it. But even the simplest things can change, and Dunkin's coffee has been doing just that. The flavor isn't what it was. Some people say it tastes watered down. Others say it's more acidic or somehow thinner than before. And while Dunkin' still markets itself as using 100% Arabica beans, former suppliers say the blend has shifted. Lower altitude beans, mixed origins, and darker roast to even out flavor across batches. It still meets the legal standard, but it doesn't always meet the memory. Longtime fans say you used to be able to tell when the pot was fresh just by the smell. Now you walk in and it all smells the same. Burnt sugar, maybe, or faintly metallic if the carafe's been sitting too long. One former manager said they were told to keep coffee in warmers for up to 30 minutes during slow periods, even though the taste starts going flat at around 20. We weren't wasting anything, they said, even if it didn't taste good anymore. That kind of cost-cutting adds up. Stores brew in batches. If the batch doesn't move fast, it stays in rotation. Combine that with the increasing use of automatic machines, and you've got a system that runs smoothly but forgets how to care. Some stores even pre-pour large orders into cardboard carafes, meaning your fresh cup might have been sitting there for a while before you walked in. And then there's the flavor masking. More people than ever are ordering flavored syrups, hazelnut, caramel, mocha, blueberry. It tastes sweet, it tastes strong, but it covers up the coffee itself. That's not accidental. One former corporate trainer said flavored drinks were pushed hard as part of the shift from just coffee to beverage destination. You're not buying a cup of joe. You're buying a coffee flavored experience. Dunkin' still feels familiar. The pink and orange signs, the fast pace, the nostalgia. But for a lot of people, the coffee at the center doesn't feel as strong as it used to. And once you stop ordering the flavor shots and drink it plain, it's easier to notice what quietly faded away. 3. Pete's Coffee. Pete's Coffee has long tried to set itself apart. Deeper roasts, stronger brews, a West Coast legacy that promised more complexity and less sugar. If Starbucks was the mall, Pete's was the indie bookstore down the block. And for a while, it held up. People who cared about coffee, who wanted it black, bold, and fresh, swore by it. But even here, some regulars have started to feel the difference. The roast is darker now, not in a good way. Longtime fans say the depth has turned into dullness. More char, less nuance. One barista said it's because of a shift in sourcing and blend strategy. To meet national demand, Pete's started relying more on centrally roasted batches and broader bean blends. That means fewer single origin brews, more house blends roasted to a safe middle ground. Safe, but not special. And when you roast that dark, you start to lose the details. Those floral notes, citrus hints, or subtle chocolate undertones, they burn off first. What's left is the roast itself. A heavy, smoky backbone that carries the coffee, but doesn't let it sing. One former employee said, "You can taste the process more than the bean." There's also been a shift in how Pete's prepares coffee in-store. More automated brewing, more reliance on machines that measure everything to the gram and second. That makes service consistent, but it also removes the human touch. No small adjustments, no instinct for freshness, no judgment calls based on smell or taste. It's precision without personality, and customers are noticing. Some say their regular order feels hollow. Not bad, just less than before. Like the volume was turned down. Even when you order a pour-over or French press, it doesn't always taste better. Just more expensive. The same roast in a different cup. Pete's still uses the same names, still prints the same origin stories on the bags, but the cup in your hand feels more mass-produced than ever. Not fake, just faded. And if you were there when it tasted different, that difference sticks with you. 4. Tim Hortons. Tim Hortons means something different depending on where you're from. In Canada, it's part of the culture, a place where hockey kids and early risers line up for coffee that feels like home. In the US, it was introduced as a new kind of convenience coffee, one that promised simple, satisfying flavor without the high price or fancy names. But somewhere in the growth, the flavor didn't follow. The coffee itself used to be rich, dark, and strong enough to carry you through the day. Now, it tastes weaker, thinner, and sometimes oddly sweet, even when you didn't add sugar. That's not just imagination. Former suppliers and former franchise workers have said the bean blend was reformulated after the brand was sold years ago. They moved from premium sources to broader blends, still technically 100% Arabica, but now including cheaper beans roasted longer to hide the gaps. The result is a flatter profile, less aroma, less body. You can still order a double-double, but the cream and sugar are now doing most of the work. One former employee said customers used to ask for coffee black, and now almost everyone adds something just to make it taste right. And those who don't, they're often left with a cup that tastes more like hot water and bitter oil than coffee. There's also been a shift in equipment. Many U.S. locations use automatic brewing systems that batch out liters of coffee in large thermal pots, keeping them warm for long stretches. That might be convenient, but the longer it sits, the more the flavor degrades. Even the best beans can't survive 2 hours under a heat lid. One franchise barista said she'd been instructed to top off old pots with fresh brew to avoid waste. That means even a fresh cup could be part old, part new, and fully off. You may still get the cup with the red maple leaf on it. The logo still says Tim Hortons, but when you sip it, something feels missing. It's not just the caffeine, it's the comfort. The quiet certainty that you were drinking something simple and good. It hasn't disappeared completely, but it has thinned. And for the people who remember how it used to taste, That thinness carries more weight than it should. If your coffee's ever tasted just a little too quiet, drop a like, share that moment in the comments, and subscribe to the hidden menu, because the smallest sips often tell the biggest stories. 5. Panera Bread. Panera Bread doesn't push coffee as its main product. It's there next to the bakery case behind the soup counter. But over the past decade, Panera has built up its coffee service into a real part of the business. Free refills, subscription models, self-serve stations that make it feel like you're getting something casual but thoughtful. The branding says clean, real, wholesome. The cup in your hand sometimes says something else. Panera's coffee comes from industrial blends. Arabica beans, yes, but roasted off-site in bulk, packaged for storage and consistency. That means your fresh cup may be built from beans roasted months ago. And in many stores, it's brewed into large thermal carafes and left to sit. The goal is speed, not attention. One former cafe associate said, "We were told to keep coffee hot for as long as it looked full. Not until it tasted right, just until someone complained." That leads to a familiar pattern. Your first cup of the day might be sharp and bitter. Your second, slightly metallic. By the third, it's either gone stale or been replaced. And you can tell, but only because it tastes closer to what you expected the first time. Panera leans heavily into flavored coffee options to make up the difference. Hazelnut, vanilla, dark roast, they're all slightly boosted with aromatic oils or natural flavorings. Not artificial, technically, but enough to create the illusion of depth. One customer noted that their hazelnut brew still smelled like hazelnut 2 hours later, but didn't actually taste like anything once the creamer was in. That's the thing about some flavorings. They're designed to smell strong and taste soft. The coffee becomes background noise. And then there's the subscription, unlimited coffee for one price. Sounds like a deal. But when something is endless, you stop thinking about whether it's good. You just go back for more. That's what Panera is counting on. You won't notice the taste as much if it's part of your routine. You'll grab it between errands, drink it out of habit, and maybe after a while forget what real coffee even tastes like. Panera still feels calm, warm, welcoming. The pastries are fresh, the music is soft. The coffee is just there. And that's the most unsettling part. Something once meant to wake you up now passes by without you even noticing. 6. 7-Eleven. 7-Eleven coffee is everywhere. It's in gas stations, mini-marts, and suburban street corners. It's not glamorous, but it's familiar. You walk in, fill your cup, add your cream and sugar, and go. For a lot of people, that's the routine, and that's the draw. But what's actually in that cup has changed more than most people realize. 7-Eleven advertises 100% Arabica beans, often highlighting regional blends like Colombian or hazelnut, depending on the season. But former distributors and franchise managers say the reality behind the scenes is more complicated. The beans come in large, pre-ground vacuum-sealed bags, roasted to a point that hides variability in quality. One supplier called it dark roast for disguise, a way to smooth over uneven sourcing without anyone noticing. The grind isn't fresh, the brew isn't made to order. Coffee sits in giant carafes or hot plate urns for as long as traffic allows. Some stores rotate it frequently, others don't. One employee admitted that overnight shifts rarely brew new pots unless a customer asks. "We'd keep the old one going until someone complained about the smell or taste. Otherwise, it stayed." Temperature is also inconsistent. Some carafes run too hot, cooking the coffee and pulling bitterness from the grounds. Others run low, turning the drink lukewarm and flat. That's why one day your 7-Eleven coffee might taste burned, and the next day it's just weak. Either way, it starts to feel more like a liquid placeholder than something you sip and enjoy. And then there's the creamers. The shelves of flavored sweeteners and pump-top bottles help mask a lot of what's changed in the cup. You're not drinking coffee, you're building it. 2 hazelnut pumps, 1 vanilla swirl, a splash of skim. By the time it hits your lips, the coffee underneath has disappeared. One customer even joked that their drink tasted like melted ice cream with a memory of beans. That's what 7-Eleven coffee has become. Not bad, not undrinkable, just forgettable. Designed to keep you moving, not to make you stop and think. And if you do stop, if you really taste it, you might start to wonder why it used to be enough. 7. McDonald's. McDonald's coffee wasn't always taken seriously. For years, it was something you ordered out of convenience. A dollar cup to go with breakfast, nothing more. But then the chain made a move. McCafe launched, espresso machines rolled out, and suddenly the golden arches were asking people to see their coffee differently. Bolder, smoother. Something to compete with the big names. And at first it worked. The brew got stronger. The price stayed low. People noticed. For a while, McDonald's coffee tasted good enough to stand on its own. But in recent years, that flavor has started to slip. Not all at once, just a slow, quiet drift that regulars have picked up on. It's less consistent, less bold, and sometimes feels like something's been watered down, literally and otherwise. Former employees say it comes down to brewing practices. McDonald's coffee is pre-ground, sealed in portioned packets, and brewed through automated systems. That setup keeps things fast and consistent on paper, but in practice, it depends on staff actually following protocols. If the water isn't hot enough, or the filter isn't set properly, or the pot sits too long, everything changes. One former crew member said, "If we got busy, we'd just use the old pot. It might have been sitting there for half an hour." There's also a shift in roast. McDonald's uses a medium roast that was once praised for being smooth and flavorful without bitterness. But some customers say it now feels thin, almost tea-like in weaker batches. That's often due to under-extraction or beans that weren't roasted quite right to begin with. And because the chain brews in such massive volume, small flaws get amplified fast. Then there's the iced coffee. Sweetened in bulk, flavored with syrup, and poured over ice, it often covers up the base coffee entirely. One customer noted, "It tastes good, but it could be anything." That's the dilemma with most of McDonald's coffee menu now. It's not bad. It just doesn't feel like coffee that stands for anything. McDonald's still serves millions of cups every day. The price is still low, the cup is still familiar, but the flavor that once surprised people, once made them say, "Wait, this is McDonald's?" has started to fade. And when that surprise goes away, what's left behind is just another stop on the morning commute. 8 Dutch Brothers. Dutch Bros isn't like the others. It doesn't lean into heritage or minimalism or dark wood interiors. It's loud, fast, sweet, and unapologetically fun. The drive-through workers are chatty, the menus are neon, the drinks are piled high with flavors and whipped cream. But beneath all the energy, there's something else going on, especially with the coffee. Because for all its personality, Dutch Bros' coffee often plays second fiddle to the sugar. That's not a mistake. It's a model. Most drinks come with syrups, sauces, or blended bases. Even the iced Americanos tend to be offered with a splash of flavor by default. And for customers used to sweet, that might be perfect. But for those chasing the actual taste of coffee, something's off. Former baristas say the beans themselves are medium roasted, designed to be smooth and unoffensive. That might work for straight espresso. But when you start adding dairy, syrups, cold foam, and soft top, the flavor gets buried. One employee put it bluntly, "It's there to carry the sugar." Customers who ask for black coffee or plain espresso often say it tastes flat or even bitter. That's because the beans, while decent quality, aren't roasted with subtlety in mind. They're roasted to punch through milk, not to stand alone. And most people don't notice because most people aren't drinking it alone. Dutch Bros also leans heavily into automation. Machines tamp espresso shots. Syrups are pre-portioned. Brews are controlled by timers. That helps with consistency, but it also means there's very little human input when it comes to taste. The result is a drink that's engineered to feel exciting, but not necessarily balanced. Even regulars sometimes admit the drinks don't always taste the same. One day it's sweet and smooth. The next it's syrupy and sharp. That's because so much of the flavor comes from additives, not the coffee itself. It's like dressing up a song with bass and drums so loud you can't hear the melody anymore. Dutch Bros is fun. It's friendly. It's full of energy. But if you take the coffee out of the cup, the whipped cream, the caramel swirl, the cinnamon on top, you're left with something that doesn't always hold up. And once you notice that, the music starts to sound a little different. Coffee used to mean something simple. You poured a cup, you tasted the beans, you felt it warm your hands, clear your head, carry you through the day. It was personal, your spot, your order, your moment. But now, with each new menu, each new flavor, each machine that brews by button, the meaning has started to drift. Because even though chains still print 100% Arabica on the side of the cup, that phrase doesn't promise much anymore. It doesn't tell you how fresh the beans were. It doesn't tell you if they were over roasted to hide inconsistencies, or if they sat for weeks in a warehouse before being ground and sealed in plastic. It doesn't tell you if the coffee you're drinking was brewed an hour ago and kept hot under a steel lid. But it sounds nice. It sounds like a promise. The truth is, most coffee chains don't want you to taste the coffee. Not really. They want you to taste the experience, the branding, the whipped cream, the caramel drizzle, the vanilla swirl. They want you to sip, smile, and come back for more. And that's fine. Until you start craving the thing underneath all of that. Until you take a sip and think, did this always taste like this? And that's when the questions start. You remember the old cup, the stronger brew, the quiet moment in the car or at the window seat where you could just drink something real. And when the new cup doesn't bring that back, when it tastes more like habit than flavor, it's hard not to feel like something small has been lost. It didn't happen overnight, just slowly, roast by roast, pot by pot, store by store. And the change didn't come with an announcement. It came with a new machine, a new blend, a quiet shift in what people expect. Now, most people don't even drink their coffee black. Most don't notice when it's thin or bitter or just plain off. Because the flavor is no longer the point. It's the platform for everything else. And once you realize that, the cup in your hand feels a little different. Maybe you keep drinking it. Maybe you add more cream. Maybe you go back tomorrow and order the same thing, hoping it will taste like it used to. Or maybe for the first time in a while, you stop and wonder. If any of that sounds familiar, if the cup in your hand has ever made you pause, leave a like, share your story in the comments, and subscribe to the hidden menu so you never miss what's changing in plain sight. And remember, the truth is not always on the menu.